All right, welcome to the sixth video pertaining to Chapter 6 in the CFA Certificate in ESG Investing curriculum, Engagement and Stewardship. This is frankly one of my favorite chapters of the curriculum simply because it takes a more nuanced approach to ESG investing. Throughout the curriculum, you will read a lot about negative screening, which means filtering out companies that presumably are the worst offenders from an ESG perspective. Engagement, on the other hand, does not exclude those companies. Instead, it is a mechanism to try to address these issues and help companies to solve these problems. So, what is the overarching message? Stewardship is used as an overarching term to describe the role of an active investor. Active in a sense that the investor seeks the dialogue with the company. One of those dialogues can be described as engagement. If the investor is a signatory to the UN PRI, the investor has stewardship responsibilities under Principle 2 of the UN PRIs. As already said, engagement means having a constructive dialogue with the company to bring ESG challenge to the forefront in an attempt to solve them. Being a steward means to preserve the long-term value of a company. As such, engagements can be done on various topics, including strategy, capital structure, risk management, corporate governance, and other things. The curriculum lays out three ESG engagement dynamics as introduced by the PRI, and those are communicative dynamics, learning dynamics, and political dynamics. The curriculum also draws clear distinctions between monitoring and engagement conversations. Monitoring conversations are those dialogues associated with the fund manager's due diligence. He needs to have a healthy dialogue to understand the financial risks of his investment on behalf of his clients. On the other side, engagement conversations usually have clear objectives of what issue is trying to be addressed or solved. So, different dialogues. Similar to what we have learned in Chapter 5 about governance codes, there have been reports and events that have led to the creation of stewardship codes. The pioneer in this area is Sir David Walker, who issued a report in 2008 in the wake of the financial crisis. In 2010, the first stewardship code was then issued with 7 principles, and those are institutional investors should 1. Publicly disclose their policy on how they will discharge their stewardship responsibilities. 2. Have a robust policy on managing conflicts of interest in relation to stewardship, and this policy should be publicly disclosed. 3. Monitor the investee companies. 4. Establish clear guidelines on when and how they will escalate their activities as a method of protecting and enhancing shareholder value. 5. Be willing to act collectively with other investors where appropriate. 6. Have a clear policy on voting and disclosure of voting activity. And 7. Report periodically on their stewardship and voting activities. This code then went through a revision in 2012 to draw more distinct differences between the roles of asset owners and asset managers. Specifically because most asset owners outsource their stewardship responsibilities to asset managers. The UK Stewardship Code was the cornerstone for the development of similar codes all around the world. The interesting fact is that while the codes are very similar all around the world, one specific topic is dealt with quite differently, that is the issue of conflicts. Now, in 2020, a further revision was undertaken. This had this more thorough report includes 12 principles instead of 7. And the biggest change was that this code increased the ambition for practical delivery by its signatories. So the 12 principles deal with Principle 1 through 8, address the foundations for stewardship, and Principle 9 to 12 focus on the practical discharge of engagement responsibilities. Now, the chapter further teaches about engagement styles. Styles can be either top-down or bottom-up, and either issue-based or company-based. When it comes to specific engagement activity, there are clear, distinct ways to go about that. There's an investment forum white paper published in November 2019 called Collective Engagement and Essential Stewardship Capability, which identifies 12 different forms of engagement. Of these five types are individual engagement, and the rest is collective engagement. The curriculum then further provides an overview of how successful engagement looks like. Things like objectives should be specific and targeted to enable clarity around delivery. The engagement should be bespoke to target company, and other kind of success factors in order to have a successful engagement. It then continues with laying out an escalation plan in the case that an engagement fails. So things start with holding additional meetings with management, specifically to discuss the concerns, expressing concerns through the company's advisors, meeting with the chair of, or other board members, intervening jointly with other institutions on particular issues, and so on and so on. So you will be given a full escalation plan. The chapter then further dives deeper into the idea of collective engagement, which can be quite useful, a quite useful way to circumvent the resource constraints that come with engaging. Engaging is quite a resource-heavy endeavor, so doing it collectively alleviates a little bit of that burden. In addition, collective engagement can have stronger effect given that it's done by a larger percentage of the shareholders. So the engagement has more power, is heavier. So, and in the chapter, you will find that the Investor Forum has laid out the collective engagement framework. Then the chapter also touches on the topic of proxy voting. Voting is the right shareholders have to voice their opinion on large operative business decisions by issuing a vote in favor or against. And proxy voting refers to the fact that voting very often is not conducted by the actual beneficial owner, but to some outsourced party. And there are two dominant proxy voting firms. One is ISS, which covers around 80% of the market, and then Glass Lewis with the remaining 20%. The vote is a key tool for active investors, and any voting decision should be aligned with the investment thesis for the holding and any stewardship agenda that the institution has in relation to the company. The chapter then finally concludes by taking a look at the various asset classes: fixed income, public equity, sovereign debt, private equity, infrastructure, real estate, and fund investments, and then the various nuances pertaining to engaging in those asset classes. Now, if we take a look at the 5 most important topics, it goes without saying you should have a fair understanding of the stewardship codes, know the differences between the engagement styles, and then have a good understanding also of goal setting and escalation processes. Proxy voting is quite an important topic as well. And then the last one is the differences in how to engage within the different asset classes.